So we've talked about how cities are changing, which naturally leads to some tensions between older residents and newer ones, as well as friction between commercial and community interests. Is this tension inevitable, or can we do better? I asked everyone what they thought. So how would you define equity as relates to cities?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really broad definition. I think it's really about any citizen of a city feeling like they belong there and have a stake there and are a co-owner of the place.
I am just concerned that people that are in the cities right now won't be able to stay. That is my biggest concern. I would like everyone that would like to stay to be able to stay so that there's none of that involuntary displacement.
Where is the center of power in cities?
Well, it's always where the money is. The money is the power in cities.
Where do you think power lies in terms of like changing a community? Is it in the newcomer? Is it in the institution? Like how is change happening?
It is within the person that has the resources. So newcomers, you obviously have some resources because you've made a choice to come from some other place, right? So you obviously have some means.
Where are the centers of power in the cities?
I think the business community in New Orleans has a tremendous amount of power, as they do in other places. I think they are driving a lot of the changes in the city, period, point blank. But I do think that there are other stakeholders within the community that also have power. And so lots of changes that occur in the city happen, specifically around social justice issues, happen because people demanded and pushed for it.
Here, the Elmore and the Green Garage are just trying to find more harmonious ways to bring humankind together with nature in urban environments. So you're starting to connect back to nature.
Okay, let's talk about resources, Tom. So
let's talk about
resources. So you're not an activist, but you are an agent of change. You know that every time I or somebody else walks into the Green Garage or the Elmo, we're walking into a universe that you have created. You know, we're walking into like your universe. And a lot of people don't have opportunities to create universes. They just consume what other people have created. Does it matter? And if it does matter, like how do we get more participation in like development? Like
I'm with you, but to me it's all a scale question. My point is, how many decisions do you make today?
That was about me right now.
Yeah. Tunde way.
Just make one just to be here.
The sum of that impact that you're talking about, but that vision is the sum of our decisions. So everyone is creating that vision. We have teachers going into a classroom every day. Let's honor that. Do you know what I mean? We've got policemen on the street every day. They don't need to have this big vision, do you know what I mean, for an urban environment, but what they do and the decisions they make today create the fabric of the city. Yeah. When we start to take the influence and putting it in the scale of this building or that building and saying, unless you can influence the world on that scale, you're not influencing the world around you, and then it's my favorite world, I think that's bullshit. Yeah. Big time. It is diminishing the power of what they're doing.
I'm just looking for more people like me at the decision-making tables. Just something simple like that. Maybe it's selfish. It's not altruistic. It's just I want to feel more comfortable in those planning sessions, so I need more people that look like me in those rooms. And the city is made up of mostly me's. Why aren't more of us involved?
How do you activate people around designing their neighborhood?
Well, that's what is tricky, because usually those kinds of design sessions or charrettes are led by certain types of people that speak a certain type of language and look a certain type of way. People don't think that the knowledge that exists in the neighborhood is as valuable. So you think the master's in planning is valuable, but you don't think that woman that's been in that neighborhood, Ms. Jenkins. You don't think that that woman that's been there for 50 years and knows the ins and outs of the neighborhood and all the people there, is her knowledge not as important as this person that just got out of grad school?
I would just say, just bring them to the table.
I think that you have to think inclusively from the get-go. So even before you're thinking about bringing them to the table, why is the table already assembled and they're not there?
But it has to start from somewhere, no?
Well, those voices are essential. I mean, they're essential. So, and the ideas are essential, and the needs are essential, and the questions are essential, and the contributions are essential. So how that's going to work, I don't, one of my favorite words is bullshit. I don't want to somehow be bullshit on this.
There is kind of this interesting, and I think it's a productive tension between the people who've spent their whole lives in a city and sort of think, well, it's never going to get better, we're down and out, they look at the city and they see downside. And the people who are coming into cities look at the same downside and they see opportunity. So you need new blood.
What should you do as somebody moving into a new neighborhood community?
Well, think about why you wanted to move into the place. And if it was something about the way that place is, you don't go in and try to change it, right? You move to a place because of how it is, not because of how you think it can be. At least you shouldn't be moving for that reason. I think the responsibility is just talk to people that are there. Before you make a decision to go to that place, talk to some people that are there. Don't just jump in and think you can make it what you want it to be.
I mean, this is an unpopular view, but I have a lot of issues with like the creative placemaking movement and all this kind of stuff because there's this, it's almost a very colonial construct where you go into a neighborhood and they sort of say, we're the great white knights or whoever it is, doesn't have to be white people, but mostly white people going into a neighborhood saying that are not white, saying, we're going to create a place for you because you don't have a place. And people are going, well, actually, I got a place right here. This has been fine,
So I've also been traveling, and I was thinking about this, about what I'm calling like the homogenization of the urban space or whatever.
Totally.
It's just everywhere you go is, restaurant, bar, coffee shop, restaurant, bar.
Yeah.
That's what like a downtown is, and then it's the same
And
style.
even beyond that, they're the same kinds of restaurants and the same kinds of bars.
Yeah.
Oh, look, is that reclaimed wood from an old house?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Oh,
And every place is called something and something.
Yeah, with a little X maybe, and don't you feel like there's a sense of inevitability? That's why I was saying.
But it doesn't have to be. That's the thing where I'm saying people need to engage in critical thinking. We're just being lazy. We're like, oh, it's inevitable, that's gonna happen. But why? Says who?
Yes, you can go to certain pockets, and we talk about gentrification as kind of having a certain formula and resulting in a certain number of, coffee shops with Edison light bulbs and reclaimed wood, and there's a whole almost cliche look. Same thing with co-working spaces. You have to have your concrete floors and your Edison light bulbs, and there is sort of like, there's a look that happens. But at the same time, I think cities, if you really step back from them, resist that. They're so, particularly today, so enormous. It gets very diverse, and I don't think we're ever going to turn a city, even one much smaller than Philadelphia, into kind of that kind of monoculture.
Let's think of like a world where we have these neighborhoods. They have been fortified and they're strong again, and they're repelling white hipsters back of kicking them out.
It's not a war. We don't have to.
Sounds like a war.
I don't feel like we have to concentrate on preventing things. I think when you advocate for a positive thing, it gets more traction and more energy around it than advocating against the negative thing. So never mind the working on keeping certain people out. Just work on keeping certain people and ideas elevated.
There's definitely room for some sharing and being part of this collective input, but you have to be respectful about what's already there and use the wisdom and the traditions and the culture of that community.
Bearded hipster can come, but he just needs to know that place is going to be that place.
But I swear to you, if you talk to bankers and real estate developers in cities, they don't get what you're talking about when you say equity. Mm-hmm. They get, well, we got a building and we got to fill it with retail and we want Starbucks and we want all the things that the kids want and we want to make this a hip, cool place. They don't really get the nuances of, well, how could this be, better for the community and for everybody, and think long term and think sustainability.
One of the reasons I ride a bike, one of the reasons I ride a bus, is you better understand as best you can what is the conversation that's going on. Do you know what I mean? And so you have to be impacted by it. You have to see a mother standing there trying to get on the bus with her 2 kids, with the stroller and going to work every day. And you better be open emotionally, intellectually, socially to what that means.
I love how we're advancing and growing and becoming more cosmopolitan. We just got another designation, as a world-class city. That's fantastic. But everyone doesn't feel that benefit. So how do we, make sure that, brown people who live in some of these underserved areas and people who are less resourced in communities, also think of their communities as world-class?
To really be able to figure out the health of a community, look at the folks that are the most disadvantaged. That's how you build your priority list. By prioritizing the people who are the most disadvantaged, that there are opportunities for the folks who are the most advantaged.
Making sure that there's adequate investment in early childhood education and support.
Investing in a more robust transportation system.
We're looking at the examples of like Baltimore, right? And people, have an opinion either way about, the unrest that happened over the summer. But those communities that were, highlighted hadn't had a supermarket since the riots, which occurred, 50 years prior. Where's the investment? How can you not feel as if people don't care about you and that, there's a disenfranchisement, that happens?
The most advantaged could benefit from going and setting up shop there. The least advantaged could benefit because they would have jobs there. They would have more resources there to make it a community that was more attractive to people.
And any policy that's going to impact folks, making sure that we're always thinking about the most vulnerable.
We lost in the last maybe 30, 40 years a sense of what I would call the fiduciary as a society. It's not just about, me alone. It is possible to achieve individual goals, but also be mindful of the world that you're living in, right?
We're a capitalist nation, so we're always trained to value capital at a higher level than all these other things. So the community already maybe is at an equal level of capacity and value. You know what I mean? You're like, will they ever have that value of resources? Well, they have an equivalent value, but it's just not in capital.
It's
that
in
makes sense.
Experience or
Yeah. So it again involves some kind of meta shift where we're valuing like knowledge or as much as money. That's heavy.
Yeah, it's real. Laura, thank you.
Thanks. Are we done? That was fun.
Yeah.
It was
I think
intense
so.
though. My head hurts.
What? Your head, your head.
From